Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I want to begin, as we always do, by acknowledging we're on Treaty 1 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis. I'm joined by Jay Shaw, Assistant Chief Emergency Management. I'll provide some opening statements, and then he'll have his own statements and updates, and then we'll both be available to answer questions on COVID. I'll also be staying a little bit longer just to speak about some things that are non-COVID related as well. Provincial officials have provided Winnipeggers and Manitobans with an update on current case counts and related matters. Today we've learned of 127 new cases in the province of Manitoba, including 75 here in the city of Winnipeg. Just to remind Winnipeggers, we've now seen 35,815 cases to date in the province of Manitoba. There is currently 130 individuals in hospital, including 34 in intensive care. 488 cases in Winnipeg over the last 7 days, with a current test positivity rate of 4.9%. As we watch the threat of variants of concern take root in provinces all around us, I want to encourage Winnipeggers to stay vigilant, stick to the fundamentals, wash your hands, wear a mask, and watch your distance. And please stay home if you're sick, and support local if you have the means. First, I was very pleased to learn yesterday evening that the provincial government is moving towards more of a risk-based approach for vaccine eligibility. That's that's not based simply on age. It's also good to see our provincial government indicate that frontline essential workers in public-facing roles in communities with the highest risk of the virus will be eligible. This is a step in the right direction. We understand that the provincial government will speak to how they plan to roll this out next week. However, I'll just say that I was especially relieved to learn that first responders such as police officers and firefighters will be prioritized for vaccines. As many of you know, I've been advocating for this since last year, and I'm pleased to see the province finally make a needed change. As we await further clarity from the province on possible changes to their public health orders, I've communicated to the provincial government my desire to see strong, proactive measures put in place as soon as possible to better protect our community from the growing threat of variants of concern. What we're seeing to the west of us in British Columbia and Alberta, and to the east of us in Ontario, is deeply concerning. And with rising case numbers here, I'm asking our provincial government to please act swiftly to get ahead of that growing threat. And I'd like to reiterate to our residents just how important it is to get the vaccine as soon as you become eligible. Not only will it help you, but it will help our community get closer to the normal we all want to see. With that, I'll hand things over to Jay and then be available to answer your questions. Thank you. Merci and miigwech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon. My name is Jay Shaw. I'm the Assistant Chief of Emergency Management. Today we have made the decision to postpone registration for the Leisure Guide swimming lessons. Registration was scheduled to begin on Tuesday, April 20th, with lessons currently scheduled to begin the week of May 9th. At this time, we are not canceling or postponing swimming lessons, just delaying Tuesday's swimming lessons registration. However, we have heard from the province as they suggest there may be changes that could be coming to the provincial health orders, and we felt it would be prudent to wait and hear from the province before we begin accepting registration and payments for these lessons. None of the Leisure Guide programming that is currently running is impacted by this delay. There is also no impact to current fitness schedules or swim blocks at our facilities. Finally, I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone to continue to be diligent. Please get the vaccine as soon as you're eligible, but also remain committed to washing your hands, wearing a mask, and staying close to home. I know folks are beginning to see the end of this pandemic as more and more of our family, friends, and neighbors are getting vaccinated, but now is not the time to stop being diligent in our fight against COVID-19. We'll now take your questions. Thank you.
James from the Winnipeg Sun.
No COVID questions, thank you.
Okay. Jeff from CTV.
Hi. Based on what you just said, Mr. Mayor, because we were asking the question, we were expecting to hear something about restrictions today, and we are not. It's going to be next week now. is the province moving fast enough based on what we're seeing in Ontario and the other provinces, you mentioned?
Well, I think obviously the more proactive all governments can be that are responsible for health, the better. I understand they're monitoring the case numbers and epidemiology data that they're privy to. And I've communicated directly to the province that the sooner they can take more proactive measures, the better.
So would you support, going back to household only, an outdoor mask mandate? You'd support, like, what measures would you support moving forward when you say act proactively and swiftly?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, the more recent measures that the province introduced in the fall, obviously I would expect that they would be revisiting whether or not those should return or not. We're just watching what's going on in other provinces, Ontario in particular, and obviously the sooner there's clarity and the sooner actions are taken when you're dealing with a virus that doesn't take a day off, the better. And so, we're anticipating, like you, Jeff, that there will be amendments to the provincial public health orders, and we'll look forward to seeing what those changes are, and we'll obviously be able to provide comment at that time.
Joyanne from the Winnipeg Free Press.
Just a quick question. There's no new date for swimming registration. You would decide that after we hear what the province announces next week?
Yeah, right now we're just postponing the registration. Once we get some more information from the province, we'll be able to assess and determine if we need to make any changes. Right now, everything would still be a go for May 9th. We'll try and get that registration going. We just need to take a little pause here to make sure that that anything that the province comes out with, that we're able to be nimble and to respond quickly so that we can serve our residents. We want to make sure that we're doing them a solid by making sure they only have to register once.
Okay. And further to Jeff's question for the mayor, you are saying act promptly, but are you specifically advocating that the province put in a specific restriction?
No, I mean, we're not privy to the epidemiology and other health information that they have. And so what we're seeing is, of course, what you're seeing, Joyanne. We're seeing what's going on across our country. One thing we learned last year is that Manitoba is not an island. And so obviously the more proactive the measures can be, the better. And we've communicated that to provincial officials earlier today.
Sean from CBC.
Jay, can you give us a sort of a sense of how nimble you are at this point to locking down, whether it's libraries or any other rec facilities, around the chess pieces if we go really tight starting next week?
Yeah, great question. So we've had to do it twice. You learn and get better at it. Unfortunately, no one wants to do it a third or a fourth time, but we have to protect everyone, right? So how nimble can we be? We can be extremely nimble based on what comes at us in the next days or weeks. If there's changes to the public health orders, the process is to, as fast and as quickly as possible, assess. Once we get the legal orders in hand, then we can ask any questions for clarification, and we can take actions. If there are definitive steps that the province wants to take, then some of them don't need as advanced assessment, and we can act immediately. So it really just depends on what we see coming that's going to be proactive and help us avoid what we saw last November.
I guess my follow-up is, Jay, you're closer to a lot of this than we are, and from your catbird seat, are we in a third wave?
Oh, absolutely. We're in the beginning of a third wave. The province has stated that. We can see it all around us, and I'm really hoping right now that more people who are eligible for vaccines go out and get them, and I'm really hoping that people take the safety messaging, follow the fundamentals, because those are still the key elements in protecting each other. We need to keep wearing our masks. Social distancing is critically important. Try and reduce your contacts And then from there, vaccines are going to help. But we're in a bit of a fight right now. So,
Jeff from CTV.
I'll just go back, I guess, Mr. Mayor. Would you support an outdoor mask mandate publicly?
I've heard Dr. Roussin talk about and Dr. Reimer speak about that as a general recommendation. I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I've heard them speak to it at least more recently. And I'd encourage Winnipeggers to not necessarily wait for provincial orders to do that. I've been typically when I'm out, certainly around other people in public, I've been just getting in the habit of wearing a mask. And what I would encourage Winnipeggers to do right now in advance of provincial public health orders that may or may not include that is to mask up. And when you're out in public and you're in public spaces with other people, just take that step and put a mask on.
That's kind of a yes.
Well, you know what? Right now we're waiting to hear what the province may act on, and obviously we want to wait to hear from them before getting into hypotheticals. But of course, as always, things are moving day to day, including here at the municipal level. All options can and should be on the table going forward. I would just encourage Winnipeggers to be vigilant, and as I've indicated, we have been asking for strong, proactive measures to be put in place to better safeguard Winnipeggers against the new variants, which we know are here.
James from the Winnipeg Sun.
Yeah, just understand that the federal government is largely responsible for the provision of vaccines in the country, and I'm just wondering what you both think in terms of, how are they doing? Are there disappointments? Wondering if you could speak to that.
I think from my point of view, it's not that I have a disappointment or approval of any of the actions of the federal government. I'm happy that the logistics of getting the vaccines into the provinces has improved, and I'm happy that we're starting to see, we've just crossed that 300,000 person threshold in the province of Manitoba, and every province has its own risk-based analysis in terms of how they're doing things, and I think that we just need to continue on that path. We can't take our foot off the gas pedal, and we need to keep pushing, and we need to keep fighting against vaccine hesitancy, and we need to keep talking about anyone who's eligible. Please go get vaccinated if it's something that you're able to do. And I want people, and especially Winnipeggers, to know that we can get through this if we get vaccinated, follow the fundamentals, and really start buckling down again, because we are in the start of a third wave.
James, I can just add to that. I mean, obviously, we appreciate the efforts of the federal government. Everything that they can do to secure more supply for Winnipeggers and Manitobans, the better. I know that there have been speed bumps along the way globally that they're responding to, and obviously we want the same outcome with the federal government. We want to get more supply into our community as quickly as possible. When it arrives here, we also want our provincial government to be successful in deploying the vaccines as quickly as possible and getting those shots in arms as soon as possible. That's why the prioritization eligibility and the change that was indicated last evening is incredibly important. We want to support those efforts and await details of those. And we trust that the provincial government is considering every deployment option possible to make improvements to the vaccine deployment processes, including, I hope they're considering everything from drive-throughs to 24/7. I mean, doing everything that they can to get those vaccines once they arrive here as quickly in the arms of Manitobans and Winnipeggers as possible. And we want them to succeed in that, just like we want our federal government to succeed in getting more supply in.
Are current vaccines, efficacious in treating these new strains that are proliferating?
There's a little bit of early data out, James, probably a better conversation to have with Dr. Reimer, but there is a little bit of early data out that suggests that the efficacy of the vaccines with some of the variants, that there's challenges. So, but probably a better question for Dr. Reimer in the province of Manitoba.
Joyanne from the Free Press.
Just to be clear, I think when the mayor just said you want them to consider everything from drive-throughs, et cetera, for vaccination, are you actually lobbying them to add drive-throughs for vaccination or any of those specific changes?
We've had ongoing dialogue, and Jay can speak to this a little bit more fulsome than I can, just about how we can be of assistance in helping them deploy vaccines as quickly as possible. Some of those informal conversations have involved just some of those ideas, and I would trust that those and others would be considered. So there's no specific ask. It's whatever we can do to support their efforts to get those vaccines deployed in our community in an efficient and quick way. And if that involves drive-through, as we're seeing in provinces like Saskatchewan, or expanded hours, or at least or even up to 24/7, I mean, obviously, we would work to support those efforts. But there's no specific ask other than let us know how we can support your efforts. And when they've asked, we've supported them with staff and other logistical assistance, whether it's traffic management and other supports.
Yeah, and I would just add, as the province is pivoting right now from a age-based to a risk-based vaccine deployment plan that we're going to be hearing about in the next coming days, there may be opportunities for different avenues to be able to get those vaccines out. We do have weekly, daily meetings with different branches of the province, very good collaboration, and if there's support that there's needed from the city to be able to change anything up in terms of what they deem is the best way to be able to get vaccines in arms, we're listening and we'll help.
Did you?
Okay, I don't have a COVID follow-up.
Okay,
That's
thanks,
fine.
Joanne. Sean, CBC.
Jay, how many city staff are involved in the vaccination programs right now, if you know that?
We have no city staff working at any of the facilities right now.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, I'll do one more quick check. Jeff, did you have any further COVID questions?
Yeah, just one quick one, Mr. Mayor. You talk about, changing that priority list is incredibly important.
I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm having troubles hearing you. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's my raspy voice. I apologize. You were calling on the priority list for the vaccine to change to include, first responders. Do you think the province waited too long to make this change?
Well, we've been in dialogue for 5-6 months on just vaccine eligibility, understanding things, as well as direct lobbying. Obviously, the sooner that the changes could have been made, the better. But I'm pleased that they've made the change, and looking forward to seeing how they're going to be operationalizing it. Obviously, that's going to be a key piece of this is how they're going to focus in specific communities, for example. But I had dialogue with provincial representatives earlier today, and on the issue of police and firefighters received confirmation that they would be eligible. So the fact that they've made the change that we've been requesting in terms of first responders is something that I'll just say today is welcome news. Obviously, the sooner is always better when you're talking about COVID.
Are you good, Jeff? I'm going to take that as a yes.
Okay.
James, are you also good on COVID?
You bet.
Okay, and I triple check, Joyanne, you're good on COVID?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We'll do a quick switch over and then we'll let the mayor go.
Okay, are we good to go? Okay. So I just have two updates for you. One is relating to Bill 37. Received notification that my ability to appear in essentially in delegation at the Legislative Committee will be, I understand, on Monday. And so it'll be the first time that I'll be appearing before a Legislative Committee on any matter. And certainly the most recent time a mayor of the city of Winnipeg has appeared before a legislative committee in recent memory. And so I'll be speaking to Bill 37 and the changes that could affect Winnipeg residents and local democracy on Monday. And I'll keep you apprised of that presentation next week. Secondly, and just the last topic is we are looking forward to hearing from the federal government and the finance minister on Monday with respect to the federal budget. We are hoping that we're hoping for three things in the federal budget. We saw the federal government propose a one-time doubling of the gas tax. We'd love to see that made permanent. The reason this is important is the programs with the gas tax go straight to municipalities. They're obviously preferred because of the approach we've seen with our provincial government with respect to federal dollars. And in particular, I'm speaking about the delays from our provincial government on the North End sewage treatment plant and their publicly stated preference to divert federal money specifically earmarked for Winnipeg Transit to other parts of the province. Money that does go straight to municipalities for their intended purpose would prevent provincial governments from really aggravating the efforts to get those federal dollars delivered in our community. Secondly, we're hoping to see a national COVID-19 recovery plan that involves cities in the process. Canada's big city mayors have been actively engaged with federal cabinet ministers and federal officials during the course of the pandemic. I'd certainly like to see the municipalities involved in a COVID-19 recovery plan. And thirdly, we've seen progress on housing with the Rapid Housing Initiative. It's delivered millions of dollars for Winnipeg families that have housing needs. We'd love to see more of that because cities like Winnipeg have significant needs for housing. And this may be a way to ensure that the recovery involves everybody in our community and helps build needed infrastructure in the process. So those are the three hopes for the federal budget on Monday, and we'll look forward to hearing from the finance minister, and we'll obviously have comments afterwards if you'd like to hear them. With that, happy to answer questions on those or any other topic.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Hey, James.
Yeah, good afternoon. So lots of talk of transit this afternoon at City Hall. It's the Winnipeg, the master transit plan looks incredible, but we've got the same problem of assaults against drivers. There's significant safety problems on transit. The ATU is referring to the issue as a revolving door, where perpetrators are carrying out acts of racism and violence against drivers and then just getting on the next bus. So I realize this is a difficult problem to address, but what are your thoughts on that? And is there anything the city can do to tackle the problem before moving ahead with these ambitious transit plans?
Well, I think on matters of public safety, we have to be able to make needed changes with safety in mind. And so, what I'll say is in response to ATU, ATU is part of the Transit Advisory Committee, so TAC. This is a committee that has been in place for a number of years. They are actively participants in helping come up with solutions to some of the real safety concerns that their members and our staff have. Obviously we want to ensure that there's a safe work environment for transit operators. We also want to make sure we have as safe an environment for our riders as possible, and that's why we've been making the investments that we have in everything from shields to technology. And there's good work that is happening. No doubt more work has to be done, and we look forward to working collaboratively with ATU to address their concerns.
Is there anything that can be done outside of committees to crack down on the problem?
Well, there's a lot of work that's going on right now. I mean, the UN Safe Cities Initiative is looking at environmental design. We've got, of course, the ongoing efforts of the Winnipeg Police Service, the collaborative efforts with the private sector, with the Downtown Community Safety Partnership. We're also trying to tackle the root causes of crime in the community through efforts like the illicit drug strategy, through the 24/7 Safe Spaces dollars, our advocacy to provincial and federal governments for funding that help build healthier communities and healthier people. So there isn't, obviously one initiative alone that's going to solve every issue regarding public safety and transit, but there are many efforts that are underway right now, including even the Bloomberg-Harvard initiative, which is looking at how we get the right resources in place at the right time for the individuals in need. And so there's a lot of work going on and a lot more work to go. Now, I haven't seen the specific request that you're referring to, James, so I'm answering this question in a little bit of a vacuum without hearing specifically from them yet. But if they've communicated with my office, I'll look forward to reviewing their correspondence.
Yeah, thanks for that. One more quick question, if I may. Are you privy to the Good Neighbors Active Living Center legal action against the city? Is there any sympathy for these folks?
Are you talking about any recent updates on it, or?
Yeah, it's ongoing, and they have written a letter to City Council or to several City Councillors suggesting that there's just a lot of frustration and they're having a hard time. I think they would like to hammer out some kind of an agreement or some kind of deal out of court, and they're expressing some frustrations with the process.
Well, my understanding is the matter is before the courts, and so that's the path that they've chosen and initiated. And so the city is responding on behalf of taxpayers and our residents as a whole in the forum that that group has chosen to adjudicate their concerns.
Thank you.
Quick question about Bill 37. Do you know what time you'll be speaking by any chance?
No, I don't, Joyanne. We can provide that to you when we become aware of it, though.
Okay.
And we can communicate it with each of you. Yeah, I'm not privy to that yet. I don't think they've indicated the time. I think they just give you a day, and then you gotta wait for your time. So. First you'd probably be more aware of those processes. I've never appeared at a legislative committee before, so it'll be a first time for me.
Yeah, I know in the past they've done it where people who are coming in from out of town will go first, and then sometimes, depending on how interesting the bill is in terms of how much feedback it attracts, it can go well into the night. So I was wondering if you had any of the timeline.
I have to say it's unfortunate. I'm going to be spending time preparing for that right now. I mean, the fact that they introduced this bill in the middle of a global pandemic, it's we're responding to this bill in real time in the middle of a pandemic. But I'll be doing my best to represent Winnipeg and Winnipeg residents forcefully on Monday.
And for the federal asks, how much gas tax is the city going to get this year? Because the announcement will double this year so far, right?
Yeah, I know that we were looking for clarity on the specifics. I'll see if we have that number, and we can get that to you this afternoon, Joyanne, if it is available. It is significant, and what we're hoping, and I think other municipalities are hoping for, is that they've doubled it now a couple times. That it would be nice just to see that permanent, and then we could budget accordingly.
And it was double, correct?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, and what was the amount last year? Do you remember what?
It was just under 50 million. I think it was in the 40s. I'll get you those numbers as well. I'd have to check our budget numbers just to see specifically, but it was under 50 million. But I'll double check that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was the one ask, is to double that every year. The other asks were to get more federal housing support, I believe?
Yeah, I think we've seen progress on housing. I mean, the Rapid Housing Initiative is probably the most significant dollars we've been able to deliver into the city of Winnipeg, to the tune of $12.5 million, and it's helped create an incentive and a program where the provincial government could provide some additional supports as well. We'd just like to see more of that because obviously the housing needs are pretty significant in the city of Winnipeg. And then the third item is really just for a COVID-19 recovery plan that involves the participation and collaboration of municipalities like Winnipeg.
So, and for the recovery plan, you're looking for similar dollars as last year for what they provided, or what are you wanting there?
It's more participation in the recovery plan. And so, we know that when there's dialogue with municipalities, with our federal government, they've responded, certainly over the most recent years and during the pandemic. They've responded to the requests of the municipalities. And so I'm hoping that we'll be part of that economic recovery planning process.
There's not a specific financial ask at this point.
No, not today. Obviously they delivered big time last year, and the doubling of the gas tax announcement is going to help significantly. But whatever plans they have for recovery, I'm just hoping that it involves participation and dialogue with municipalities like Winnipeg.
Okay. And for housing, you're looking for affordable housing supports, or?
Yep, affordable, social. I mean, we've got a whole spectrum of housing needs, and so I know that this is a huge priority for the Prime Minister and for Minister Hussein, we've made numerous announcements in this room, at least virtually in recent months. We're just hoping that those investments will continue, and we'll see dollars ultimately continue to flow into the city of Winnipeg through that housing lens.
But you're not asking, it's not like your provincial asks were super specific, so you're not asking for a specific dollar amount or anything like that at this point?
On the housing, no. Just because they have stepped up. There's a good track record where they've provided real dollars in recent months to the city of Winnipeg, and so we'd like to see that continue. That's kind of the same. I mean, one of my asks for the provincial budget was that they just simply honor their existing financial commitments that we've budgeted for, and so it's a kind of a consistent approach in that respect. I mean, we're still having to seek clarity on the ambulance funding, which was part of that, but notwithstanding that issue, that was the ask.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, did you earlier last year get a chance to walk on any of the open streets when the city closed them off and let residents get some exercise?
No, I did cycle on them numerous times, though.
So you're probably aware that IRPW is faced with a bit of a conundrum in that they'd like to extend the program, but they've been told by Public Works that actually allowing people to walk on those streets breaks the HTA. And we had an interview this afternoon with Minister Schuler. He says, not changing the law, pedestrians and cars don't mix. The law is clear. If the city of Winnipeg wants to allow people to walk on those streets, you've got to significantly block off one lane from another. And he cited Edmonton as the model example where hundreds, if not thousands, of traffic cones are put out and planter boxes, and the two lanes are completely separated from each other. So I'd like your thoughts about this, given that it was obviously a super popular program for the city.
It was popular with a lot of folks. It wasn't popular with everyone. I mean, let's be honest about that. I liked it, and it's something that I'd like to see return, and it's why I've supported the efforts and the dialogue that we're having right now. I think it's important to keep in mind that I know a lot of us right now are quite anxious and hopeful that there can be a path forward in the short term. These are part of long-term efforts to look at what are the lessons that we can learn from COVID, and what changes would Winnipeggers like to see going forward, just to build the kind of community that we all want to live in. And so obviously disappointed with what we heard in respect of the provincial legislation. I know the committee is reviewing this issue along with the Transit Master Plan, and they'll be looking to work on this. I think today they've changed it to just delegations, if I'm correct, and they're going to attend to this on Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to hearing what the councillors on the committee are able to do to try to find a path forward. And then, you know, obviously we can go from there. But I'm hoping that we can find a path forward that provides increased amenities for people that are staying closer to home in a way that protects their safety. That's at the end of the day what we're all trying to accomplish, is giving people additional spaces for recreation, but also doing it in a manner that appropriately mitigates the risk to pedestrians and cyclists. And that's something that we'll see what the committee does next week, and then go from there. But I'm hoping that we can find a path forward.
Do you want pedestrian access back, though?
Well, that was the hope before we received the administrative report that more fully canvassed the Highway Traffic Act. And so obviously I think we need to comply with provincial legislation. And if there is an interim measure that is appropriate, that can protect safety and give people the amenities that I think the vast majority of people welcomed last year, that would be preferred. And if there's long-term requests that we need to make of the provincial government, then we'll make them. You know, but let's have the committee do their work on Tuesday. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing what members of council on the committee are able to do, and then we can go from there.
The program, as it has been remodified, is called specifically for cyclists, and that would be the get around of the HTA and the restriction of pedestrians on the road.
Yeah.
But if you talk to some of your colleagues on council, they're pretty realistic. If you close the streets and say it's for cyclists, people are going to walk on the roads. Like, well, they just are.
I'm sure
would you acknowledge that that's probably the case?
Well, I'm sure you wouldn't, Sean, because you're law abiding.
I confess to being a scofflaw under the Act in 2020 with my family, and I think that there were, not exaggerating, tens of thousands of Winnipeggers over those months that did do that.
Yeah.
And I would say that I would actually, you said at your opening remarks that, you know, there were people that were against this. You know, if we canvass, yes, there is some contention between drivers and pedestrians from time to time.
Yeah.
And there is some tension between people that live on these streets who just are simply trying to get to their driveways and pedestrians. But for the general broad spectrum, I mean, if I look at the submissions to the committee today, the vast majority support getting pedestrians on those streets.
Yeah, it's something It's something I supported, and I wasn't trying to overstate opposition to it. I mean, it's not universal, but it was largely welcomed, and I certainly enjoyed it. I mean, I cycled down a number of the streets. I wanted to see how it was working, and you know, one of the concerns last year was really just that everybody's respectful of each other. Anytime you're involving vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists, we want people to be safe and to be respectful, and obviously we have some navigating to do as a committee. The committee will look to it on Tuesday to try to find a path forward. It could be short-term and long-term efforts. You know, obviously, I know we're all focused right now, or many are focused in you know, for this summer, and that's obviously something I welcome. But let's also keep in mind, we're looking at this, and I'm certainly looking at this in terms of what might be possible in the long run, and that may involve appeals to the provincial government to make some changes to the legislation. But I want to respect the committee and the councillors on the committee, and I look forward to hearing what the result is of their deliberations on Tuesday.
If Minister Schuler has taken at his word, and the only way to adhere to the HTA and get pedestrians on the street is to separate lanes, that needs to be fairly clearly demarked. Would you support the expenditure, both manpower-wise and infrastructure-wise, to do that, to get to allow pedestrians out there? Lots of traffic cones, drop them off, pick them up, etc.
Well, I haven't spoken with the minister or heard directly from him. I'm just hearing these comments through this press conference right now, Sean. I can certainly speak to the advice that we've received from our public service, and that's who members of council receive reports from. So I don't want to get into hypotheticals at this point. I'm certainly open to seeing how we can find a path forward that accommodates the demand, and I'm hopeful that we can do so in a manner that protects people's safety. And so that's my primary concern, is making sure we're following the legislation, we're managing and mitigating safety as best we can. And once we hear from the committee, then I'll certainly have more to say once we've heard from them. But I'd rather not get into answering a hypothetical at this stage.
Okay.
You guys good?
So thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Sean.
No, I was just saying thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe. Have a great weekend.